So, welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews, where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes, their challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this afternoon, I'm delighted to have with us Alford Grant, who's of Grant Media. So, Alford, thank you for spending a bit of time with us. And if you'd like to introduce yourself, what you do, how you help people, that would be wonderful.
Chris, it's an absolute joy and a pleasure to be here and talking to you in this manner. I've been around in what's called media training for best part of 2 decades, in fact, just
Brilliant.
over. And I came into media training, which is really all about showing business leaders how to tell stories about their business that helps them to protect their business. And I got into this almost by accident because I was at a point working for the BBC, and I just felt a bit unfulfilled. And I remember going home one day saying to my then girlfriend, "Ask me how many people I've interviewed today." And she goes, "Well, how many?" I said, 13. It's like this sausage machine. I thought, no, this is not what I came into this industry to do. And so I thought I need to find some other way of utilizing my skills. And what I discovered was that over time, when I had business leaders coming into my radio studio to be interviewed, I realized that they didn't know what they were doing. And so I began to just jolly push them along a little bit by suggesting, I wouldn't say that, but say this. Well, who is it you want to talk to? And what is your message? And by asking these really simple questions, I discovered that they didn't really know what they wanted to say. And so I'd coach them in what to say. And I thought, I really enjoyed it. And so I decided to resign from the BBC. And I thought, okay, what am I going to do? And I saw an advert in a national newspaper looking for a media coach. And I thought, what? Never seen that before. And I thought, I'll go for it. And then 3 weeks later, I became a media coach for a company that was then called TRT, Television and Radio Techniques. And that's how I moved away from broadcasting into coaching business leaders, something I love more today than I did on the first day 22 years ago.
Brilliant. So as a kid, is this the sort of thing you envisage yourself doing as an adult? Both working with the BBC and the media training, or did you have other plans at that point?
Do you know what? I actually wanted to be a dancer.
Cool.
Seriously, I did. I wanted to be a dancer, but my dad said, no son of mine is going to wear a tutu. So I thought, okay, that's out then. That's out, right? And then when I was, I actually became an apprentice engineer, which bored me rigid. Right? And then I remember going into the centre of Leeds when I was 18, and I read a book by a guy called Norman Vincent Peale. I don't know if you know him. Right? The book is called The Power of Positive Thinking. And in those days, I didn't read. But somehow this book was like talking to me. And I read this book, and I'd go back to the bookstore every Saturday for a month. And then one time I went home, and I just had this dream one night. My head was full of all this stuff from Norman Vincent Peale. And I had this dream of becoming a radio DJ. And I thought, yeah, right, I'm an engineer. It's never going to happen. But then when I was 20, I started making pretend radio programs in my bedroom. And I used to give them out to shops in Leeds city centre. And one day I went to a shop to collect something from one of the shops I gave the tape out to. And this woman said, have you got any more tapes? I goes, well, yeah, what do you want? And I remember going in thinking, that sounds like my voice. And she goes, yeah, it's your tape. And I'm thinking, oh my God. And that really scared me. And she goes, Alf, it's really good. You could do this for a living. I says, yeah, right. And I walked out. And I thought, I wonder if she meant it. So I gave the tape to one of my friends called Steve. Right? And I said, Steve, listen to this and give me your honest opinion of this person speaking on. I didn't say it was me. This honest opinion of this guy speaking on this tape. He listened to it and he rang me up that night. And he goes, Alf, that was you, wasn't it? I goes, yes. He goes, wow, you could do that for a living. I goes, no, come on, tell me the truth. No, you could do that for a living. But, oh, Okay. So I did the next best thing. I listened to all the BBC, all the radio programs and radio stations in my area. And I thought, do you know what? If you're going to work on the media, go for the BBC. So I listened to BBC Radio Leeds, and I listened for 1 week solidly to every single program. And I wrote a critique on every program and said, here's what you need to do to make your programs better, to get a more modern audience tuning into your station. Sent it off to the radio station, and 3 days later, this guy rang the house, and he goes, hello, can I talk to Alford Grant? And goes, speaking. This is Stuart Campbell from BBC Radio. Says, come on, who are you really? I thought it was my friend messing around. No, come on, get real. Who are you? And he goes, it's Stuart Campbell from BBC Radio Leeds. You've sent me a demo tape. And I'm thinking, oh my God. And I said, and? Well, could you come in and have a conversation with us? We really like it. We'd like to talk to you. So I went in there 2 days later, sat down in a studio, spoken to a microphone. He came into the studio and said, when can you start? And I'm
Brilliant.
thinking, how easy was that? I couldn't believe it. I really could not believe it. And so I trace all that back to reading that book by Norman Vincent Peale, because it kind of unlocked something in me.
Brilliant.
Because I left school with no qualifications. I have no GSTs, no nothing, zip, nada. And I thought, well, okay, so it seemed like the only route for me was going through that apprenticeship route. But Norman Vincent Peale found something in me that no one else had found in me before.
Brilliant.
And it gave me that drive to do something different.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Fantastic. So looking back over your career throughout in BBC and the media training, what are some of the biggest issues and challenges that you've had to overcome?
Self-belief, because when I first joined BBC Radio in Leeds, then I was the one person there who had no qualifications. Everyone else, especially in the newsroom, were all from ex-Oxford, ex-Cambridge, ex-University of Wales, ex-University of Leeds, and here's me from ex-University of Life. And I'm thinking, how the heck can I compete with these people? And they're up here, and I felt down here. I really felt down there. I just didn't feel I could compete with those people. And because of that, I began to call myself a failure because I was judging myself against them. I didn't think I could compete. I didn't think I was good enough. And because of that, the next thing I didn't do was I was failing to ask for help. I thought, okay, I can figure this out. I can do it all by myself. But, that went on for 4.5 years.
Right.
And even though I got the odd opportunity to speak on air, then it all changed one day when a BBC producer called Anne Hunter stopped me and said, look, Alf, if you don't change, your career in the BBC will be over. What you need to do is sell out to learning skills. And if you do that, you've got a chance. But if you don't do it, I'm telling you now, they'll get rid of you. But wow. She really made me think. And so I took her word. And so what I started doing was I went to speech and drama to change my voice. I went to singing lessons to strengthen my voice. Every night for 1 year solid, every single night, Monday to Sunday, I was sneaking into a radio studio to sit behind a microphone in a studio, and I'll practice speaking on a microphone to make my voice distinctive. I did it for 1 year. No one knew. I did it, thought, well, she's told me to sell out, so that I've got to do it. After about 6 months of speaking on a microphone, I was replaying a tape one day, just playing back what I'd recorded the night before. And a producer came into the studio. And he stopped and said, well, whose voice is this? I said, it's mine. He goes, no way. It's mine. He goes, prove it. Okay. So I put the tape back on, opened the microphone and spoke a few words and recorded it, replayed the voice, the recording. And he said, oh, that is you. I goes, well, yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, I really like your voice and I want your voice on my radio program. Oh, right, okay. He goes, I'm on holiday in 2 weeks. Could you deputize for me? I said, are you kidding? He goes,
Brilliant.
no. So that was my breakthrough.
Wonderful.
Right. And when this guy called Peter Byrne, when Peter went on holiday, he made sure I was in the chair where he would sit doing his program. It was a request program for 2 weeks. And that was my breakthrough.
Brilliant. Brilliant. So overcome. I mean, we meet quite a lot of people that on these interviews, and they talk about that idea of imposter syndrome, not feeling good enough, and it's really challenging, I think, for so many people. But it's such a common thing, so it's like, well, everyone's got it, therefore it's okay, in my opinion. And I think Stephen Bartlett's got a great phrase about imposter syndrome. He says, "I love imposter syndrome because it means I'm in the right room and I'm going to learn something." And I think that's a great way to look at it, because many people I meet are still, even whatever level of success they are, still feel they're maybe not worthy or good enough to be in their role.
When I was at BBC Radio Leeds, there was a guy who was presenting an afternoon show on Radio Leeds, and his stage name was Alvin Blossom. The guy was so funny. He was a brilliant broadcaster. He was a very funny guy from Bradford. And one day I walked into his studio and goes, how's things going, Alford? He goes, not very well. I'm a failure. He goes, you what? I go, not very well. I'm a failure. And it went, stop. Don't you ever say that word again. Don't you ever call yourself a failure again, ever. Do you hear me? I thought, oh my God. He goes, it's as bad as swearing. Don't do it. You've got to protect this.
Absolutely.
You're going somewhere, you're becoming something, but do not call yourself a failure.
Yeah, people say the most important thing we say to ourselves is what we say to ourselves about ourselves when we're by ourselves. And it's really key we manage that, as you say, because that's self-care, and whatever we say is what will manifest itself. So it's really important that we say the positive. If we want a positive outcome, guess what? We've got to say positive things. Saying negative things and expect positive outcomes is a bit crazy in many ways.
Absolutely.
Alfred, I'm keen to know what some of the biggest learnings you've had about success in your career so far. What are some of the keys? I'm guessing overcoming the feelings that you had, but what other things would you say are the causes and reasons behind your success?
Do you know, years ago I was involved with an organization called Amway in my spare time. And it was what's called becoming an independent business owner. Essentially, it was marketing, right? And I built up a big group across the UK, and I began listening to Jim Rohn. And I've always remembered Jim Rohn talking about work hard on yourself than you do on your job. When I first heard, I thought, what's he talking about? But it was going through the Amway business, whereby I was making presentations at least 6 times a week to new people to join my business, and then to my team. And that took me from this guy who felt afraid to stand up in front of a group of people because I thought, not good enough. Right? Or no, there are others who are better than me, better qualified than me, to thinking, do you know what? I've got something to say. I can say it in a way that actually grabs people's ears. You know, people enjoy listening to me. So get yourself out there, Alf. All right. So it turned me around. And that's the moment I started working more on me. And the Amway business helps me with that, because every month they were feeding me a brand new book, a brand new book, a brand new book. So every single month of the year, there was a new book that was coming out, which we had to read and absorb and then talk about in our meetings. So I just think, and when I talk to business leaders about speaking in the media, and many of them think that, well, do you know what, I don't really need it, or why would I need it? And to answer that right now, I would say to any business leader that we are living in the best time in history, the best moment in history, when it's possible to speak the messages that you want and to control the narrative in the way that you want the narrative to be controlled. Well, 20 years before, YouTube began, right, it was all done. Hello, BBC. Hello, ITV. Hello, Daily Mail. They were leading you. And the opportunities to speak to the mass media were
Yep.
limited by BBC, ITV, Channel 4, and so on and so forth. But now there's so many options. Look, we're speaking on Google Meets. Yeah, there's Zoom. There are podcasts that you could do. You could put yourself on a YouTube. You could do a blog. And you can control exactly what you say, when you say it, and how you speak it, and who you distribute that message to. That's what media training is really all about. Having a message and learning how to distribute it so that people get it, and in turn, it protects your business, your status, and your credibility. Media training isn't what people think. A lot of people think that media training is all about, well, you've got to satisfy the journalist. No, you don't. You satisfy your audience. You have to understand the journalist and their thought process. And once you understand that, that's how you control the narrative. And that's how you protect your business. And that's how you grow your credibility, your authority, and your status via the media. It's so powerful when people understand exactly what to do.
No, absolutely. All make absolute sense. So just thinking about people that supported you, who I think you're aware we're a business coaching organisation. I'm keen to know who the best coaches you work with, whether that's business, sport, life in general. Who's had the biggest impact on you?
Oh, that's a really good question. I've got to say that it's always been, I would say, thinking about what I do now, that it's definitely my first mentor, Anne Hunter. She turned me around and said, if you don't start working on your skills, she was a bit of, how can I put this one? She was a sergeant major, okay?
Right.
No mess with Anne. Do what I do or get out of my face. If I ask you to do it, make sure you've done it. If you haven't done it, go away, come back when you have. Right? She really put that discipline, that almost that iron will discipline inside of me. And that was good for me because I was a bit laissez-faire. Oh, that can wait till tomorrow. She goes, no, do it now. So she was really good for me. Right? Secondly, I've got to say that the guy who trained me at TRT, a man called John Brand, who's not around anymore. But when I joined TRT, John did not allow me to do any training for 3 months. He said,
Right.
we are going in that studio every day for 3 months, and I'm going to teach you everything I know about training. And when after 3 months, that's when you can be let loose onto our clients. Until then, you need to prove to me that I've done the right thing in giving you this opportunity. So 3 months. And I had to learn about the values of the business, the mission of the business. There are some stocked elements of what we would say, some frameworks that we had to learn and how to present it to the client. He made sure I knew it inside out and backwards before he let me speak to a real human being in training. And I've never forgotten that. It's made me who I am and how I train today.
Brilliant. That's a couple of great recommendations of obviously some amazing people. And whether it's from them or other sources, do you have any favorite quotes or sayings on business or success that you catch yourself using on a regular basis?
No, I tend to use my own frameworks. I I tend to say to people, look, I did some training. Remember, well, it seems like a long time ago now, but COVID, right? And at the start of COVID, I remember doing some work with the Chesterfield Royal Hospital and supporting the Macmillan nurses.
Right.
Because with COVID, there were certain things they could not do. And so they made a decision that what they would do is put their talks that they had been making live on video.
Yep.
But that was a challenge because obviously, they're kind of touchy-feely, being impersonable in the way they speak. And so we had to teach them how to present themselves on video. And for them, that was a really big deal because they used to kind of, stroking, looking at a person, And what they had to learn, the biggest lesson was this: when you speak on video, or in a training lesson, or on a stage, it's not about you. It's always about them. And so they were becoming nervous at the prospect of talking on video because their whole thought process was, oh, they can see me. Oh, I don't feel good. Oh, how do I talk to this camera? Oh, how do I speak on a microphone? Because it's all self-reflective thinking about me, 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 me. And that's natural. You know, I went through that when I first got into the media. That's natural. And so people need to be shown how to avoid some of these basic errors that prevent them from being themselves when they want to talk on video or on tape or just stand up in and do some kind of public speaking. It's not about me speaking, right? It's about them. So everything I'm talking about today isn't really about me. It's the journey I've made, because it's the journey that other people are watching will also been through too. Or it will show them that I began with nothing. I was Mr. Nervous energy. You know, when I was 21, I had a twitch. You put me in front of two people to talk and I would twitch like this. I couldn't do it. I couldn't I'd be talking like that. I just couldn't do it. So I don't know how I put myself in front of a microphone to record in my bedroom, but something clicked. And then from that moment when it clicked, I was kind of on that trajectory. And bit by bit, it's just watching, learning, seeing others, having others give input and inject. And a lot of the time, thinking of who really impacted me, Brian Tracy. I used to watch this. God, I love that. I love his videos. God, just watch his videos like this and why can't I talk like that? And get his videos, get some of his booklets. I've got a book down here, Brian Tracy on speaking, right? And, you know, it's gold dust. It's gold dust. So I just think we have to be willing to open up ourselves, willing to learn, make a few errors, make some mistakes and go again. That's why I said to a client last week, who's in the head of sales for a big organization. I said that, you know, the most important, no, I put it this way to him: what do you think is the most important lesson you've learned from today? And he said, well, it's those power phrases, it's understanding messaging. I said, is that the biggest lesson? He goes, well, they're good lessons. He goes, no, but what's the biggest lesson? Oh, okay. The biggest lesson is coming right now. I said, what's that? Implementation. You see, you've been here today, you've had the training, but your growth isn't based on what you do today, it's based on what you do after today. And he knew all about the so-called forgetting curve, so we spoke about that. So what matters is, over the next 6 months, if you do nothing with what you've learned today, how much will you remember? Zero.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. It's
So the most important point from the whole session today is you need an action plan to help you implement this stuff. And in the room was the person who organized the meeting. And so we sat down on a table and said, okay, in the next month, we need to have a conversation to draw up an action plan to show you how to keep these skills fresh, but also to test yourself. Not to be brilliant, not to be perfect, but to see what bits are working for you in the real world. And then bring that feedback back, and then we can build from there. So it's all about the implementation. If you implement, you learn. If you do nothing, you learn zip.
yeah, couldn't agree more. That's why we coach people, not just train people. It's about implementation and taking action. 100%. And what would you say you've learned about yourself throughout your journey so far, Alford?
I think the biggest thing I would say that I've learned is that sometimes I'm my own worst enemy. Right? Instead of going for it, I think about it. I remember this was in the book, Norman Vincent Peale. In his book, he calls it being half-minded. So, in other words, you come up with an idea, you thought, oh, I'll really go for that. And then you think, oh, I'll wait till tomorrow. Oh, I'll wait till the day after. Oh, no, now's not the right time. And he would, I remember his book saying, don't be silly, just get it done. And so I still do that when I think, yeah, thanks, Norman. It's still there in my head. and it's really important. Right? So sometimes I put things off instead of doing it, and that's the biggest challenge for me. And I still have to work on that. It hasn't gone
Yeah,
completely. That's where the discipline comes in, to do things when you need to do it.
absolutely. No, it makes perfect sense. And final question: what's the best advice you give an 18-year-old you if you go back in time and do that?
The future is yours for the taking, and it's based upon not who you are, but who can help you, and whether you listen, and whether you have the discipline and desire to grow and to be more than you thought you could be.
Brilliant, love it, love it. Like, sound advice for anybody at any age, I would suggest. So really cool. Alfred, it's been great talking to you today, and really interesting and exciting. And you've shared not just some great learnings, but also some great experiences in the things that you do. And for anyone that's watching would like to get in touch with you about anything, but especially what you do and how you can help them, what would be the best way of doing that?
Oh, just drop me an email. It's alford@grantmedia.co.uk, right? Or
Brilliant.
link up with me on LinkedIn. Just simply
Perfect.
Alf Grant on LinkedIn. Connect, and we can have conversations. I'm on there
Brilliant.
3 times. I'm on there at least 3 times a week.
Wonderful. Well, look, it'd be great to swing by another 6, 12 months to just see what's new, what's going on, get some more learnings from you. But from now, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure, Chris. Thank you for the invite. It's been great talking to you.
Thank you.